Hello, my name is Jim Jensen. That was an inspiring video. It's going to be tough to follow that act, but I work for the Marin Agricultural Land Trust as a stewardship project manager, but also grew up on a ranch in Marin County here and raised sheep. So this is really inspiring to see this growing and what Fibershed has done along with the Marin Carbon Project and how it's grown. And just as far as coming from a community update, and working for the land trust that has about 78 easements on ranches in Marin County. It's about 48,000 acres, and you'll also hear from Loren here in a second as another rancher who is a part of Fibershed. I think that these kinds of things, community focus, and also I heard the term prosumer today, I think for the first time. Consumers that are making decisions, with more than just price. They're making decisions on purchasing goods that they feel good about. And I think that's a real opportunity that Fibershed sees and is running with. And so it's really great to see. For someone who grew up sack and wool, and we'd store it in the barn, and it was just kind of like a byproduct. We were raising lamb. And just like Lonnie said, it was like, isn't this stuff should have some value? And it was just the global ag economy that we live in today, that we've kind of created over time makes these things complex. But with groups like Fibershed and the Marin Carbon Project, and I know we're in the Bay Area here, we're a little bit in a bubble, and I understand that, but I think that it's a model that can be replicated. There's been quite a bit said about the USDA, NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. There's representatives from RCDs here today as well. And so the whole carbon farm planning process can be replicated, and I think that's what's really cool about it. If Lonnie can do it up in the Modoc, I think it can be replicated anywhere. So it just takes that passion and energy and focus. So that's kind of my update, and I guess just a little bit more background. My dad and I we have 400 ewes in Tamaulipas, and so it's kind of just been a labor of love. Sheep production, years ago, it was a little bit different, but it's really, you have to love what you do. It's not a fortune, but with groups like Fibershed and being able to market your product directly, I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for sheep production and focusing on the soil. And I think that's where it all starts and that's where it all ends. So anything else? Okay. Thank you all.
Hi, everybody. I'm Loren Poncia. I'm a rancher up in Tamaulipas, Jimbo's neighbor. Actually, Jim's kind of like my little brother, really. I grew up running around all over his ranch, and he grew up all over my place. So I'm super proud of this guy, watching what he's doing and working with malt. I have 5 minutes to talk about Carbon Farm update, and 5 minutes for me is really hard because I like to talk. So I'll be around after. We could talk more, but I am... I got big minutes, is what John says, but I am really honored to be part of the Marin Carbon Project. I'm one of 3 different ranches here in Marin County that actually is a carbon farm model farm, I guess is what you would say. And I believe we have the first carbon farm plan in the country. So it's a pretty cool, exciting honor to be leading the pack on this type of awesome work. What's really happened to me as a rancher is 10 years ago when I started full-time ranching and trying to make a full-time living out of it. I thought that I was a grass farmer, and what I really realized and did not realize until we started with the Marin Carbon Project is that I'm really a soil farmer, and I really need to be focusing on the soil to make amazing, beautiful biologic soil so that we can have prolific perennial plants that are super healthy for our animals, and then we can ultimately sell wool, meat, milk, all different types of things. But it all starts with the soil. So about 5 years ago, because of John and the Marin Carbon Project and Fibershed and malt and this great partnership, RCD and RCS, I really started paying attention to the soil. And now all of the management decisions we make on the ranch really revolve around the soil, not around the cattle or the grass. So it's pretty exciting. We're seeing great results. A couple of the things that that are the most exciting for me is we're using planting trees, riparian zone corridors. We fenced off over 5 miles of creek and planted well over 2,000 trees in the last 20 years. So we have a really cool biodiverse riparian area. There's now 35 different types of migratory birds that use this area that never did 20 years ago because the habitat didn't exist. So what gets me pretty stoked is I'm a relatively young guy, 42 next month, and I've seen this happen in the last 20 years, and I'm very excited if I can live to be as old as my great-grandfather Angelo, 102. We're going to see some amazing progress in the next 60 years. So I'm very excited about it. Yeah. I have just one more thing because I know we're on a tight timeline that I want to tell you guys about it because it's what lights me up right now. Is we have first before you can change the soil, you need to diagnose what your problems are with the soil. And with me. With my ranch and with a lot of coastal California, we have a lot of compaction because of the last 150 years of management or mismanagement. We also have low calcium. And what the whole carbon thing is, to make it really simple, is it's basically carbon in the soil is like a sponge. Just coming through this bad drought that we had the last couple years ago, I'm a dry land farmer, so whatever rain we get, like the amazing rain we got last night, we want it to stay in the soil and not run off into Tamales Bay. So the more carbon we have in the soil, it just sucks it up like a sponge, and then I can plant different plants like forbs and perennial grasses that will actually stay green year-round. So I want to have green grass year-round so we can finish lamb and make amazing high-quality wool year-round here, and hopefully that would be what it was like 200 or 300 years ago here. There was a lot more perennial plants. So chicory, plantain, brassica, and worm farm is my next new cool thing that I'm all stoked about. Worms. I love worm farms. So if you don't have a worm farm at home, you need to get one. That's it.
Do we have that soil-to-soil infographic? Is that easy to pull up? Hi, Wool Symposium. How's everyone doing? Are you like sucked full of information? You're just like, oh my God. That is how I've felt after every Wool Symposium, in fact, for the last several years. And every year I seem to have a new project that I'm presenting to you. This year is no different. For the past year, I've been working with Loren and Jim, who you just saw present, as well as Hazel out at Bodega Pastures. We've been organizing a wool pool to put together to have an outlet for the coarse wool that is grown in the region. So we've seen presentations about the cloth and different things using the lower micron count wool, the really soft, fine wool. We also grow a lot of really coarse wool that is really good for a lot of different things. Bedding, all kinds of housewares. Jill Hackett, who presented in the morning, was talking about wanting jeans. I love the idea. I think we can get there. So in the past year, what we've done is put Loren and Jim's wool together with Hazel's, a little bit of other neighbors, and send it to get scoured and carded and turned into batting. And then some of it has been turned into felt by Jackie Post, who's one of our members. And so what we're trying to do with this project is basically fill in the links. So you see at the bottom, we're really lucky in this area. We have a lot of people here who have a lot of needs they need clothing, they need bedding, they need all these things, sponges. And we have a bunch of farmers and ranchers like Loren and Jim. We have a lot of sheep. We're lucky to live in this grassland area that is actually maintained by sheep who grow wool. So we have all this wool and we have all these people and we have all this demand and needs. And the upper sections of the chain are kind of not really there, as you heard with the mill inventory project. So one of the things that I stepped up to do this year was to be essentially the next link in the chain to get that raw baled wool, to send it, get it scoured and carded so that then it can go on to the next place in the chain, the people who are making product. I have gotten a bit of product made, so we have a limited run, I would say, of comforters and pillows. There are other Fibershed producers also who you can get wool comforters and pillows from. The main hope for the bulk of it is really to inspire essentially a new supply chain using this batting, supporting carbon farming. There have been other people in the area who have been making bedding, but what we really want to do is sort of push that further into even like right now it's a couple thousand pounds of batting. So that's essentially a niche market. But this is really the start. We really want to push it more into the mainstream and get a lot more diversity of different sort of small scale or mid-tier textile makers, people who have companies who are making comforters themselves or who are making other product that they could use wool batting in. So basically, we're looking for the next step to happen. There is, if you see the display out next to the knit-along, there's the batting and there's an information sheet. So if you yourself are wanting like a pillow or a comforter or like a bat or something like small scale like that, you can get it from me. But also if you want to be the next link in the chain and you have a company or a startup, you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea for a project, we're also selling them commercially in 40-pound bats, so that you can talk to me directly about. My email is on there. I think my phone number is on there. Email is really the best way to be in touch with me. I would just finish by saying now more than ever do we really need to make our economies dependent on but supplied by our local landscape, because if we are going to head into a new era of business-driven society, we need our economies to be fully in sync with the landscape and with the sustainability of that landscape. And I'm heading at it through sheep. Thank you, everyone.
Down for the short people. Hi, I'm Leslie Atkins, Heartfelt Fiber Farm. It's a mini eco-fiber farm in Sonoma County where everything goes to the small is beautiful model. We try to have eco-friendly operations, healthy wool, good karma, continuous harvest. We don't do any meat. It's all about the fiber and the land. And I'm an ecologist from my background. I learned about climate change in graduate school in the late 70s, and I've lived with that awful knowledge ever since, while most people didn't know about it. So on our farm, I've been doing a lot of things small scale, trying to help regenerate carbon and plant for wildlife, and we have bees and have everything cycle. But we had a gift from out of nowhere in summer. Someone who was taking the permaculture skills course in landscape design contacted me and asked if I would mind if she made a redesign of the landscape on our little 3.5-acre farm, her capstone project. She was interested in fiber as well as in landscape, and she came up with a beautiful design, which I'll share with you. But first, Erin might want to tell you about the Permaculture Skills Center, just so you know what that is. Yes, and it's probably the first one tailored to a small fiber project like this. She interviewed me, and we came up with the challenges, which are listed there, lots and lots of, on the next slide. Lots of challenges, too much water, sometimes too little water, lack of many big trees now, wanting to increase nutrition in pasture, and increase wildlife value as well as carbon sequestration. So she came up with a design vision, which is exactly in sync with what my dream has been all along in evolving this farm. And she's married all of our goals and included a plan that would sequester something like 8 tons of carbon per year on a little 3.5-acre plot. And the next slide shows the carbon strategies that she came up with. And I should mention that I probably was one of the first ones to enroll with the Sonoma RCD on this front, and they have started a map, but they don't have the funding to move ahead the way this plan does. So she has jumped way ahead. And the big things are compost application, adding hedgerows, silvopasture, planting more native grass plants, prescribed grazing, which we already have been doing and have seen remarkable results from using little electric fences for our little herd, and then intensive silvopasture. And of course, I don't have time to go through many of the details, but you can see a beautiful, beautiful plan that she's come up with, which that's the core. Well, the core area is around the house, and that has a detailed garden that includes new trees, more of the Dine garden, which we already have, and water management system, more water storage. We've already started rainwater storage. And then we go to the master plan year 1, which includes, if you can see, lots of new plantings in what is now open pasture. And she came up with a really great list of all sorts of interesting species that are good for forage, good for bees, good for putting carbon and nitrogen in the soil. It would change the whole look of the place. Right now we look across the plain, and this would be shrubs and trees and more perennials. Then she did a wonderful animated thing, which I didn't include, but then you can see the difference between year 10 as things are growing and year 1. You start getting much more canopy, heading towards a 40% canopy. And the next slide shows what she calculated to be the ideal, or at least estimated, carbon sequestering potential for all of the different practices, and it adds up to about 8 tons per year sequestered carbon on 3.5-acre little farm where you have a continuous harvest of fiber.
This is the online tool that Dr. Reed mentioned that was funded in partnership with Colorado State. So you all can use this tool, Comet Farm Planner. Comet Planner?
Yeah.
Colorado State University.
Yeah, it's neat because you really can set your goals and have different strategies, multiple strategies, which add up to be much more powerful than just putting your half-inch of compost on and going from there. So that's the plan, and there are going to be a lot of challenges. She also took the time to identify sources of funding, a number of sources of funding, which we would need. We don't have the capital to do all this, and as a herd manager, I know that it'll be very challenging to plant a lot of shrubs and trees. They all need protection because grazing, we have grazers and browsers, and they will eat anything that's not protected. She did identify a few interesting methods to try to protect, but I think that's going to be a huge challenge, as well as irrigation in the early. If you plant all this and then you have a big drought, you lose everything. She had some ideas about that too. So just got this plan a week ago, and we'll keep you posted as to how it goes. But it's very exciting. Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ariana Mazzucchi, and my husband, Casey Mazzucchi's out in the tent for right now. And so just a little bit for some of you that may not know who we are. Casey, my husband, is a fourth-generation sheep rancher from Marin County here. And I grew up on the southern Marin ranches, but I got into sheep about 14 years ago. And they kind of came with the property the ranch that I got in Valley Ford. And after my first shearing, I asked the neighbors, I said, what do you do with your wool? And they said, well, we throw it away. And I was like, what? I didn't know a lot about wool yet, but I'm very amateur knitter, and I thought, well, at least maybe I can make some yarn out of it. Went online and did a lot of research and found out how healthy it is for bedding. And so one thing led to another, and I've been doing wool bedding for almost 14 years now. And I used to send it to YOLO and then sent it to Michigan and, to get it processed and all that kind of stuff. And when Casey and I got together, right about the same time, in 2013, we bought a building in Valley Ford. And so we became the Valley Ford Wool Mill. We actually bought mill equipment and started our own mill so that we could have more control of our wool. And the whole process, and right almost exactly at that time, we met Rebecca and the Fibershed, and it was so exciting. I'm kind of getting the tingles. It's just like the whole concept. I mean, we're really all about local, organic, sustainable, taking care of our communities, taking care of our animals. We just recently became animal welfare approved. And last year we actually moved, so we started the Valley Ford Wool Mill, so some of us know us as that, and we had Skyhorse Ranch in Valley Ford. And we moved last summer to Point Arena, which is a little south of Mendocino on the coast. So we moved to a 530-acre ag preserve. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of land. And we moved our mill, so we're one of the few ranches in the United States that grows the wool, mills the wool, and makes product right on our ranch. It's super. We just love it. And we have in the past done wool processing for other local wool growers, and we still do some of that. Part of our mill, one of the unique features of our mill also is that we have a 10-foot needle loom. It's an industrial needle loom, so we can make rugs, blankets, mattress pads. Actual mattresses, wool mattresses, and fabrics. And so we're really into fabrics. We've been working with a lot of the local designers out of the Bay Area who are making anywhere from rugs, purses, clothing. Carol Franchette out there has some of our wool as accents on some of her pieces. I know she has some other stuff too. And it's really fun working with the designers because we're able to keep challenging this machine. It has so much more that we can learn about what it can do. So, and also being in the wool processing and processing a lot of other wools for the last several years, we've learned a lot about wool. When we first started out, we had the Dorset. My daughters grew up going to school with Jim, and we all had sort of very similar kinds of sheep. And now we have Dorset, we have Navajo Churro, we have Icelandic, we have Shetland, we have Romney. And then just in processing other people's wool, we've learned a lot about all the different kinds of wools and what their uses are. And I think every wool has value, so don't throw it away. In fact, if any of you that are growers, and if you ever get any of your fleeces and when you shear them and they're matted or felted on we'll take them. We have use for them. And so we also have a store where we not only sell our wool bedding and other wool products that we make, but a lot of people that are here as artists. We sell their yarns and anything wool or locally made, even or organic. So all of that. Also, just really excited about everything that you're doing, Rebecca, and all the people that you bring together to do all the amazing things. And so thank you for coming up. She came up to our ranch about 2 weeks ago, and we did our first soil testing, so we're really excited about that. And one of the other things that I'm really particularly in KC2 interested in at where we are, because we can, a lot of our ranch actually there's, it has so much diversity to it. So our goal is to not only focus on, continuing to educate people about the health benefits of wool, not just as a clothing or as a bedding, but how it's grown. Basically when you say it's like pretty much the most sustainably grown fiber there is, and but also educating people and us ourselves, learning more about the soil. Like you were talking about all the exciting things. I got excited about earthworms when you were saying that too. So. There's just so, that's one of the things I also love about these times is just there's sort of an excitement and enthusiasm and a sharing and a collaborating about, so it's just super exciting, like times for how we can change. We can change, we can do this, and coming together. We're also looking at a permaculture garden area. I love educating people about reconnecting them to land and nature, because I feel like if we get people back to the land and nature, each can heal the other. The earth can heal us, and we can heal. There was one other thing I was going to say. Oh, we're really getting into looking into pasture cropping too, growing grasses, growing grains, and then pasture cropping and rotating. And the last thing I just want to say is we also we have an annual wool festival. So our 4th annual wool festival will be at Kasari Ranch. That's our new name. Almost forgot to say that. So it's Casey and Ariana, Kasari Ranch in Point Arena, and it's May 20th and 21st. And we have, anywhere from, we probably have like 20 to 30 artists, vendors, tons of demonstrations, hopefully some workshops of, anywhere from felting to dyeing and spinning and music and food and all that good stuff. And we're moving our store, like I said, to the ranch too. So we're open right now Wednesday through Sunday, and we do mill tours and ranch tours, and we also have some farm stay and campsites if people want the whole ranch experience. So yeah, so thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks everyone.
I highly recommend going to Ariana's, going there with Kelsey last week, or week before last, and taking soil samples, being right there on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. It refreshes the soul on every level. So, thank you.